What's up, sons? It's Blind Run with Son of a Tech once again, and we are going to be checking out the performance of the RX480 8GB and the GTX1060 6GB in none other than Watch Dogs 2. I've heard lots of interesting things about this game, including some random snatch and crotchless panties, but how does it perform on PC? Stick around to find out. To start things off, as always, we'll go over the test bench, which is going to be an i7-3770K, mated to an Asus P8Z77 motherboard. It is the Pro Thunderbolt version with 16GB of DDR3, and that's clocked at 1600 MHz, and powering the rig is going to be the Corsair RX480i, and the game will be running on a PNY 500GB solid-state drive. The benchmark run is going to be essentially kind of right after you've loaded into, I guess, the main portion of the open world, and if you go down kind of the main road and follow that a ways, you'll actually have a bridge that you can cross there. Not the Golden Gate Bridge, but the other bridge on the other side. And if you turn around, you'll see like a Highway 92, and you'll start right at that sign and follow that road kind of as it leads you through the town and up and eventually into a tunnel. This is a good spot because you get lots of different things going on. Now, of course, that does make it difficult because it is an open world game. I can't get the exact same benchmark run every single time, so keep that in mind while you take a look at these numbers. Moving on into settings, we are going to be testing the game at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K as always, and the only thing I'm changing up here is I was playing around with the game, and unfortunately the performance is so abysmal that even doing the benchmarking run wasn't that fun, to be honest with you. So I did knock the settings down quite a bit. As opposed to looking at what the numbers are for, let's say, like Ultra, we've bumped down 2 notches now at this point to high. And what that's done is taken like all the textures down. We don't have the texture pack installed here because the game actually does have the option to install a high quality texture pack or a high definition, whatever the hell it's fucking called, which will obviously hurt the performance even more. And I did check that. It does. It's no fun. So at the high for 1080p, I was actually able to get a pretty playable experience, and I felt that at that point we could go ahead and at least decide which card's best for Watch Dogs 2. Unfortunately, I just think that PC and Watch Dogs 2 isn't going to get along, but let's get into the numbers. Starting out at 1080p at the high preset, like explained earlier, we had a minimum of 43 FPS with an average of 63 and a max of 77. This was on the RX480 8GB. Now you'll notice there that we did keep an average of above 60 FPS, which to me, the game did feel very playable on both of these cards. Moving over to the GTX1060 6GB, we had a minimum FPS bump up from the 43 on the RX480 to a whopping 54 with an average of 69.8 and a max of 79. Obviously we can see a pretty big leap here moving from the RX480 to the GTX1060. However, neither card was able to keep a consistent frame rate above 60 FPS. Even going ahead and modifying some of the settings and turning off all AA and all ambient occlusion and turning some other settings down, like the headlights, I noticed took quite a bit off the frame rate dips. If you actually turn the headlights all the way off, like not even on your car, you can get some better performance, but I still never was able to stay above 60 FPS, which was just kind of frustrating because both of these cards are new and supposed to be pretty much like entry level, like mid-level, sorry, entry mid, what is that called? Mid-level, it's a basic gaming PC that one of these cards is going to be in that, and we aren't getting that 60 FPS, which tells me that the developers didn't really have their finger on the pulse of the market right now for GPUs. I'm not really sure, not impressed so far, but let's go ahead and see how it performs at 1440p, where the RX480 had a minimum FPS of 39 with an average of 48 48 and a max of 56. Bumping over to the GTX 1060 6GB, we had a minimum of 44 with an average of 51.4 and a max of 61 FPS. Obviously here, this continues on that we do have that performance gain for the GTX 1060. Finally, we have Watch Dogs 2 at 4K on the high preset. The RX480 had a minimum FPS of 23 with an average of 26 and a max of 29. While on the GTX 1060 6GB, we had a minimum of 24 FPS with an average of 27.9 and a max of 31. Now, in conclusion, let's go ahead and clarify one thing. If you guys haven't noticed, there is an ambient occlusion option that is HBAO+. This version of ambient occlusion is physically based and it is proprietary to NVIDIA. So we already know that the game has a setting in it that is proprietary to NVIDIA, and before I even booted the game up, I assumed that the GTX 1060 6GB would win. The question was by how much. Another reason you can actually tell that it is optimized for NVIDIA is very interesting indeed, and I'll go ahead and point that out. If you max the game out even with and load the extreme textures, the high quality textures, the max amount of video RAM that I was able to get the game to utilize was 6 GB, which I found curious as well. That being said, obviously if you want to play Watch Dogs 2 and get the best experience for around the $250 to $300 mark, you're going to be looking at the GTX 1060 6GB. I'm not sure that this will translate over into the 3GB model and maybe the RX480 4GB. We'll have to take a look at that at a later date. Until there's a PC performance patch, we won't be looking at this game again for the RX480 8GB and the GTX 1060 6GB. But when it comes out, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below in case I miss it, and I will hop right on that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, please. That'd be awesome if you enjoyed the content. If you didn't enjoy the content, well, I guess my begging was even more annoying. Yeah. So anyways, I'll see you next Tuesday.